It's 5 o'clock. We've just been sitting here waiting for it to become 5 o'clock, and now it's 5 o'clock, so we'll get started. Welcome to City Council. We are happy to have all of you here, and we have David Case with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here to give us an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this beautiful day. We're grateful to live in this beautiful place and to be surrounded by good people and great neighborhoods. And we're grateful for all of the many blessings that we enjoy. Grateful for the opportunity to be at this city council meeting this evening. We pray for these council members and for our mayor and all those that work and serve on our behalf, that they can be blessed with health and strength, and that they will be inspired in the decisions that they make and the discussion that they have. Please help us as citizens to do our part to serve and to contribute to this community and to help make it a wonderful place for our families to be. We're again grateful for all that we have, and we ask Thy Spirit to be with us this evening, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I have asked, so we used to get scouts here all the time, and now we don't get scouts very often. But tonight we have with us from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, St. George 16th Ward, the valiant 9 and 10-year-old boys. And so I've asked them if they will lead us in the pledge. So boys, come on up to the mic, will you?
Will the audience please rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The audience may be seated.
Thank you so much, boys. Great job. And they were excited to do it because I told them they were going to be on TV and they could watch this on YouTube later. So they said, okay, we'll do it. But we appreciate the Wilkinsons for bringing them. All right. Oh, we need to excuse our city manager. He is ill and had to go home early today. So we have our assistant city manager, Deanna Berklasic. Come on, Deanna. Deanna filling in for Adam tonight. So we have no pre-agenda items. Oh, yeah. No, we don't. We don't. So
we don't.
No. We're ready to go right into our agenda.
Okay, I will mention, Mayor and Council, that number, item number 10, to consider the approval of the preliminary plat for the Palermo Pass at DeBarrio, well, that's a mouthful, has been tabled. And we will be planning to hear that, move it forward to December 16th, our next regular city council meeting.
Thanks, Deanna.
Mm-hmm. And so our first item is the consent calendar. And council, are there any items that you would like to pull off and discuss individually tonight? Otherwise, staff has reviewed all of the items and they comply with our standards, and staff does recommend approval.
I'll make a motion, or actually I don't want to make a comment. I just want to make a comment. Item E, arts design's been around for the last, I think, 10 years. It's just a really great program. I just wanted to call it out and just say I think they do a really good job. It brings a lot of attention to all the various arts that are happening in southern Utah. Just a big proponent of it. I just wanted to call it out and say I really enjoy what they do.
Hey, and while you're doing that, I mean, we might as well call out the Red Cliffs Bird Fest also, April 30th, 2022. I read that, and that sounds really fun. What a cool thing that we're doing in our city.
Second.
I'll make it official. With that, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item number 2 is to consider the approval of an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 13A of the City Code as it pertains to certain public streets in the Hillside Overlay Zone. And Mayor and Council, as you're aware, we met earlier in a work meeting to discuss this item. We'll go ahead and let Dan present it.
Thank you. This is the language that was proposed to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council. As you may recall, and if you want me to go through all these, I can, but the Planning Commission recommended striking number 3. Staff recommends that that remain, just to keep that really narrow in scope. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer those, but that is staff's official recommendations is to keep that number 3, and then with the other 4, adopt this language.
And we just had a work meeting on this at 4 o'clock and spent 35 minutes going over this, and council asked I think the questions they wanted answered. And do you have any questions, council, or concerns with this language and keeping in item number 3 instead of excluding that, or number 3?
Mayor, I like what since we've discussed this previously, I like what the city staff has come up with. I think that we should keep in item number 3. I also would suggest that as we're making adjustments in the hillside for these roads in this ordinance, I'd like to see a number 6, that for the new cuts that are taking place for this new road, that the mitigation or the retaining or whatever needs to be done there in the cuts has some type of aesthetic. The aesthetics are approved by the council, so it's not just your normal, but something. I don't know exactly what to say, but does anybody get my gist on that?
I think saying that the aesthetics are approved by the council would fit that bill,
Okay.
like what you want to have
Can you
done.
just add that to number 4?
Either add it to 4 or add it to
Add
number
that
6.
wording
One
to
of the
4?
two.
Because it kind of fits right in there.
So we can add some language that is along those lines, that the council will approve any retaining walls or things of that nature. We can work some language so that it's
Aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, so it's aesthetically pleasing. Correct.
You want to make a motion?
Sure.
Shannon?
With that, I would
Okay.
like to make a motion, Mayor, that we approve an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 13A of the City Code as it pertains to certain public streets in the Hillside Overlay Zone.
I'll second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Danielle. This is an ordinance calling for a roll call vote. So all in favor, starting with Bardell.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 3, also presented by Dan, is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Boulder Creek Commons River Crossing Phase 1 PDC Planned Development Commercial Zone for Phase 1 of the proposed commercial development to be known as River Crossing Phase 1 on approximately 12.02 acres located at the southeast corner of River Road and 1450 South.
Okay. So you may I'm sure you'll recognize this property. Used to be known as Boulder Creek Crossing, or Boulder Creek Commons. There is a Boulder Creek Crossing as well. This one is, you actually saw it not terribly long ago, maybe at the beginning of the year, in regards to removing some limitations that were placed on the property regarding drive-throughs. Those were revised, and that limitation was taken off, and we'll go through that here in just a second. But that's just to refresh your memory. This is the property we're talking about. 1450 South is on the north, and then you have River Road to the west. And we're only talking about this northernmost property. I think you'll see this southern portion of the property come forward before you, probably sometime in the new year, but for now we're just talking about that northern portion. Land use calls for commercial on the property, and the zoning is currently PDC, so we're not changing any zoning as of right now. In fact, the use list that was originally approved with the Boulder Creek Commons is not being changed either. They're okay with the use list as it stands, and so that will remain as it was approved. This is a look at the site plan, and you can see buildings A through G that are proposed with this site plan. One slight modification that the Planning Commission recommended, and I'll go through that as well here in just a second. But buildings A through G, we are looking specifically at, we're looking at the site in general, all those buildings and the area that is not hatched out tonight. Buildings A and B do not have elevations tonight, though, so those will have to come before you at a later date. Those are specific tenants that will be building their own buildings, and so they'll come before you when they're ready. But we do have elevations for the rest. The parking is adequate. They are parked at, we looked at the parking worst case scenario. If these all turned into restaurants, which we don't anticipate that they will, but if they did, they would meet the requirement for parking and exceed it by about 32 spaces. So we felt comfortable with the parking situation. The Planning Commission was a little concerned about the how the stacking would work. When it came before the City Council earlier to remove the limitation on the number of drive-throughs, which was limited to 3, the council said, we want to make sure that this has plenty of stacking for any restaurants that may come in or any drive-throughs. And so there was a requirement placed that there would be at least 5 parking stalls or stacking spaces for each drive-through. So staff's gone through and made sure that that is that is being met. And the city, or let's see, the Planning Commission asked that they provide an exhibit showing that that will that they'll be able to meet that requirement. So they produced this exhibit showing all the stacking spaces that will be provided on the site. Now, some of these, they probably won't be double spaced all, throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole drive-through, but the point is that they're showing enough stacking spaces, that they should be adequately stacked. So it doesn't bleed out into the streets or some of those other problems that we've seen in the past. One of the other things the Planning Commission was concerned about was this area. You can see on this site plan, there are 2 entryways in here and in here between G and H. They have reduced that to one entry point so that, again, there's more stacking area on G and on H. So that's one modification that they made. The other one that they made at the Planning Commission's suggestion was that this entry point right here be constructed with phase 1. So they hadn't initially, you can see on this plan that they hadn't initially shown that, but Planning Commission was just concerned that they have enough ingress and egress, and so they have, so they made that recommendation that they provide that point with phase 1. So those are the only modifications that the Planning Commission suggested. Otherwise, they recommended approval. This is a look at the conceptual landscape plan, meeting their landscape requirements. And again, as we go through the site planning process, if this is approved, we'll make sure that all the landscaping requirements are being met there. Yes, and this shows that change again here between those buildings G and H. That single entry point. This is a look at the buildings. This is building C, and I'll kind of go through these fairly quickly because they are all fairly similar in nature, but or in design. This is building D, and again, keep in mind that building A and building B will come in later with their design. Again, the approved use table. This is what was approved with Boulder Creek Commons, not changing. They're comfortable with all these uses. And then I'll look at the site. So with that, again, the Planning Commission recommended approval with those few conditions. Again, that would be, they just wanted to see the stacking. They wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with the stacking. That entry point between buildings G and H being reduced to 1, and then that entry point into the site on that southernmost boundary be constructed with phase 1. If there are any other questions for myself, happy to try to answer those.
Dan, can you go back to the buildings? Can you show us which building faces are facing 1450 and River Road,
Yeah. So that'll be A and B again, don't mean to.
Which
beat
we
a dead
don't have
horse,
yet,
but
right?
Those will come later. Buildings E and F will face 1450, so let's look at those. Yeah, E and F. So there's E. Man, it's kind of hard to see, I'm sorry.
That's D.
But, oh. Yeah, sorry. E. The applicant may be able to guide me a little bit better here. 'Cause I can't read
Okay.
that. This says north, so I guess this side,
that's the north, okay.
uh-huh,
Okay.
on that building, and then F, it's gonna be that smaller side again, so this looks like this side right here.
So I'm building
And
F,
then
okay.
it'll-
And that black that we see, is that an architectural element? I just wanted to make sure. It was hard for me to tell when I was looking at these, like,
Yeah.
what was, they were using some of the lines for measurement, and I couldn't tell what was architectural element and what was measurement.
Yeah, the applicant's architect is here, and he could probably answer that better if you'd
Okay.
like to hear from him.
I guess what I'm really asking is, are there interesting architectural elements facing River Road and 1450? Sometimes we've had some of these come in, and all the interest is on the interior, but then the main roads, that we've just got these real plain backs, and so I was curious about that.
Yeah, my name is Jason Bright. I'm with Method Studio. Yes, we were very conscious of that as well, to make sure that these buildings don't have a sense that there's a back in front of them. So on the sides that do face the streets, even though they're not the active front of the storefronts, there is storefront located on them as well. Actually, I think, can I scroll to Building F here? Or? Building F is a great example. This is the first one that we have built, and actually there's a board over here with materials and a more photorealistic rendering to it. And you can get a sense that this top left elevation that you see here, this is the one, these ones are facing the streets, as are this one here in the center through there as well. So
Okay.
yeah, we definitely made a chance to do it. This one actually looks a little bit better than these ones. These are a little more diagrammatic. This one's here is a little more photorealistic. So you get a sense of the materials as well. So
Okay.
sometimes the shadows too kind of throw you off with the dark.
They look great. Yeah, thank you.
So I think Jimmy and I are the only ones here that have been through this numerous times, this piece of property. So it would really be awesome to see something finally built there. Looking forward to it, actually.
One other point I should bring up, there were some people that came to the public hearing. For the most part, the feedback was positive. Trying to think, I think there was one that had a couple of concerns, but it sounded to me like they had were working with the applicant, and the applicant had been in contact with the ones that showed up anyway, so.
Yeah, I heard there was a lot of positive feedback too, and the developer has worked well with the neighbors to let them know what's going on there, so that's good. Any questions for Dan?
I have one question on the stacking. If you could go back to the stacking.
Sure.
So on those double stacks, so like particularly the one on the east side, on the northeast side there, right towards the main entrance, is that required to be double stacked there then because
No.
it's shorter? It's not required.
No, they don't have to. In fact, like I said, you wouldn't. The only one I can think that double stacks like that is maybe Chick-fil-A. They'll double stack around almost the entire building. Typically, you don't see that. Usually, they'll funnel into a single line. They don't have to be double stacked. I think they were just trying to show that they have the space. That they have adequate space to do so.
So does the city staff feel that, say that one didn't double stack,
Uh-huh.
do we feel good that, if it's a high level user, we're okay? And
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest concern is when you spill out into particularly a public street, that becomes a real problem. But I don't see anywhere on here where that's really a concern. So.
I think my concern is like just if you go to Red Rock Commons, right, and Chick-fil-A just shuts down all your entrances to that. So as long as we feel confident that that's not going to happen here, then
yeah. I think the Planning Commission was a little concerned between G and H, but I think they've addressed that by creating that single point instead of the two into there. Otherwise, I think they're okay.
Okay.
And I've spoken to the developer also, and they do not want anything to end up like the one you're talking about, because we all know how that is. It's a mess. Yeah, it's a mess for parking and driving through there or anything else. Other questions, comments? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the Boulder Creek Commons, soon to be known as River Crossing Phase 1, a planned development commercial zone for Phase 1 of the proposed commercial development, again to be known as River Crossing Phase 1, on approximately 12.02 acres located on the southeast corner of River Road and 1450 South.
Question on the motion. Dan, do we need to include the elements from the Planning Commission, the recommendations, or are they already included?
Let me look. Can't remember if I included those.
I think they were included, weren't they, John?
I would, just to be safe. So again, that's that southernmost entry point is included with Phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
That there's adequate stacking, and that the entry point between buildings G and H is reduced to just a single point instead of the 2 points that they originally showed.
I'll add that to my motion.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item, number 4, is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Atkinville Interchange area commercial zone for the conceptual site plan elevations, colors, and materials to be known as Sun River Patio Furniture on approximately 5.06 acres located south of Nighthawk Drive, west of Pioneer Road, and east of Sandpiper Drive.
Thank you. I didn't have to use my glasses. That makes it nice. Okay, so this is the item that has been tabled a couple times, so we are here to hear this case tonight. This is the aerial of the location. I-15 right here, this angle towards the bottom of the photo, and then we've got Pioneer Road, Nighthawk Drive, and Sandpiper Drive that this borders all 3 of those roads. And this was the location of the Flex commercial space case that did pass a few months ago. General plan, land use plan map shows this as commercial and employment. And then the zoning is PDC, plan development commercial. So this is the secondary application for this PD, and they are wanting to bring this forward to get the site plan and elevations approved for this patio furniture building. So I did want to point out that this is the Atkinville Interchange Area Zone Plan. This is from their zone plan, and they do have this area right here. It's listed as community commercial. And in the zone plan, it does state that community commercial allows C2 uses, so all C2 uses. And this use proposed tonight is a use that is allowed in the C2 district. So this is a site plan kind of placed on the property. We have Pioneer Road here, and then the Nighthawk and Sandpiper up here. Kind of zooming in a little bit, the building, there's one large building and then a couple of smaller divisions. The maximum height will be 35 feet, which does fit in with the regulations. We do have sufficient utilities, and it does meet setbacks, and no sign requests at this time. For parking requirements, they are required to have 174 parking spaces, and they are showing, let's see, oh, it's cut off, but they do have more than they're required. Let's see, if I can do a quick adding. 270, oh, they have the exact amount. That's how bad I am at fast math. It took me a long time there. Okay, so total of 96, just over 96,000 square feet for this building. I do want to go into the traffic improvements because they will be required to do some traffic improvements. On Pioneer Road, they will be required to put in a dedicated left-hand turn lane into this development. Here's their entrance here, which will also be a shared entrance with this development. This is actually to the south. The whole thing is kind of turned at this point. And then they will also be able to, or required to put in a dedicated right-hand turn lane, which they do show this on the site plan. Let's see, what else will they be required to do? There will not be a requirement for a signal at this intersection at this time. And this entrance is located on Sandpiper. This entrance is mainly going to be for their deliveries. It's not really going to be a customer entrance, so they are expecting only the trucks to come in through here, and with the regular customers entering in down here on Pioneer. As far as pedestrian circulation and bike parking and vehicle charging stations, they don't show them on the plans, but we will make sure they have those on their plans when they present their official site plan for review. We would like a few more pedestrian accesses. There is a sidewalk that they show all along the streets. However, we would like to see a sidewalk connecting from the street into the actual businesses. So if someone's walking along the street, they can kind of cut through instead of just walking directly through the parking lot. Landscape requirements, they do show a conceptual plan here for their landscaping. We do require the 15-foot landscape strip along all of the right-of-ways. Buffer requirements, this is residential here along Sandpiper, so we are requiring a 6-foot buffer wall, and then the landscaping will suffice for the buffer landscaping along Sandpiper. The lighting plan that they submitted does not meet our lighting requirements. We do require 1-foot candle at all property lines. They're a little above that in a few places, but we'll make sure at site plan process that they meet that regulation. As far as the elevation goes, this is what you'll see along Sandpiper. There aren't any windows along Sandpiper. As I mentioned, it's a vehicle entrance. Nighthawk, there will be a few windows and entrances on this side. Their main entrance will be on Pioneer, so that's mainly the fronts of all the buildings. And then this is what will be fronting the vacant lot that's on the south. We did take this before the Planning Commission. They did recommend approval of this, just making sure that all of the regulations are met when they go through that site plan process. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Carol, I'll ask the same question about the architecture. The architectural side facing Sandpiper. Mm-hmm. There were lines through it. I couldn't get my computer to really zoom in on that today. So I think it's all just measurement. There's no architectural detail on the rear, right? Facing Sandpiper?
Yeah, and I do have, let me pull up this plan here. This top one is the one that will go along Sandpiper. I mean, it looks like lines, but it's hard to tell what that is, and I can have the applicant come in and explain more detail on that. But I think they wanted to keep it less articulated because it's the rear and not, they didn't want the public going in through that entrance. But if you'd like to look through the actual material board, I can pass it through around if you want. Okay.
Other questions for Carol? Would you like to hear from the applicant? Mr. Stewart?
Hi there.
Hey, can you just state your name for the record?
Collins Stewart.
So Collins, I know you've met with the residents several times. How many times have you met with the residents?
3.
3 times.
Twice with their committee and once with, once in the ballroom, they invited all of Sun River.
And I really, so the city council, we all went out and looked at this particular piece of property because the topography is very unique on this property.
It is.
And we know the residents were really concerned about the access on Sandpiper. And so they formed this committee, which has, I think, has been really productive. To have a committee that can work with you and take back and forth. And there was some concerns that they understand the topography. They understood that you needed an entrance off of Sandpiper purely for your trucks and delivery. And as somebody that doesn't live in Sun River, but if I wanted to go visit your store, I'm going to use Pioneer to go into the store and access it that way. So trash pickup was brought up, delivery times were brought up, lighting, different things like that. So
yeah, so like you said, the group that they have has been, well, helpful for me because this is the first time I've ever been through a process like this. And so having a point of contact and a group of them that we've been able to visit about things has been really helpful. And predominantly, there's a lot of different opinions, but safety being the primary concern of the voice that I heard that they brought to me. And, like I said, there's some other opinions as well, but in particular, accessing Sandpiper and making sure that the residents maintain their safety. That was the primary goal. So we talked about the elevations a lot, and the elevations are extremely unique. The way that this property sits so much higher from Nighthawk than Darcy's piece to the north of me does. He's able to access it purely from Nighthawk, and I don't have that option. So at any rate, in the end, making sure that the traffic or the traffic on Sandpiper, what we really came down to is wanting to make sure that as it exits my property, that they are making a right-hand turn, which puts them immediately within 150 feet-ish onto Nighthawk, and then points them back at Pioneer. What they really want to avoid is traffic heading south down Sandpiper, which would move them in the direction more of the neighborhood, and I agree. And so signage there at the exit point of the property there onto Sandpiper, making sure that people understand that it's a right only out of there, so that we don't get traffic headed south on Sandpiper. And then also, like you said, making sure that I control hours of delivery, so that we're not interrupting them in the mornings. And we even did some language that allowed some earlier hours for 4 months out of the year when it's hot and heat becomes a bit of an issue. But that the rest of the year they could expect that they wouldn't have to hear something at 6 a.m., say. And then the other one that makes a lot of noise being the trash as well, that I'd manage those within hours. I think it was 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. so that they didn't have to worry that that's what they were going to wake up to there as well. In the end, I mean, we talked about a lot of different things several different times, that being the primary one, because for me, that was really a big stipulation on the property being usable, is that it has to be able to access Sandpiper there, but also understanding their concern and making sure that we address it in a way that's appropriate as well.
Questions for Collins?
I have one. Collins, I was just reading through some of these resident comments, and so one of them, another concern in regards to the traffic is that once it's not just your store, that you fill in those other spaces and that the property below you is open, that people would start using that back access, even if it's signed as business only access, kind of like over by Home Depot and Walmart, it says business only, but everybody flies through there. that they would start using that back access on Sandpiper just because it's more convenient. So what about doing a gate across there so that the only access is commercial?
So I didn't have a conversation with them about limiting it to commercial, and that wasn't my intention. Now, by the same token, with the access onto Sandpiper not being visible as you enter the property, because regardless of whether you're coming north or south to the property, that entrance on Sandpiper isn't visible as you enter the property. And I've spent a lot of time, obviously from my first meeting with Sun River until the last one and until now, I spent a lot of time thinking about this myself, and in the end realized I actually used this exact same scenario in my stores today, meaning both outdoor living and patio furniture I own, and they both have access points. When I'm headed to the freeway, it is substantially easier for me to leave out of the back of the building and turn right onto Main Street and go to that intersection to get on the freeway. It actually is a shorter distance, and it's actually faster. And even as the owner, going there on a daily basis, I still enter the property from Bluff, and I still exit the property from Bluff 99.9% of the time, because it's just the main road, and it's the one that's right in front of me. It's the one that's visible. And we've counted the cars that actually exit our store to the back, and I mean, it's less than 1%. It's almost nil. I haven't anticipated eliminating that as an option. I wouldn't want somebody to get boxed in. If somebody wanted to pick up something of their own, I'd want them to. But again, it would be less than 1%. And as far as the rest of the businesses in there, 3 of them are mine. So I know what they are. And they're not repeat businesses like, say, Home Depot or some of the others where people may become accustomed to trying to find a faster way out. The other thing that we really paid attention to is making sure that I'm sharing access points with the south property, which is also Darcy's as well. But with the elevation of the property as it is, we will have some excavation work to do to get the properties to line up to where we can do 2 full lanes that come in and 2 that leave. So we have 4 wide there, separated with a divider in the middle that's landscaped. And the idea there is to make it the most appealing, the most attractive, the most visible, and the easiest and the safest to enter and exit the property, so that you're not inclined to try and find some other way. So, I mean, we've hashed out and thought this over every single possible way, and encouraging people to use that pioneer, I feel like is really the answer. And like I said, having businesses in like scenarios now has really helped me feel like we do have the best solution in front of us.
Any other questions? Comments? Carol, when the Planning Commission approved this, did they approve it with conditions for hours of delivery and trash and stuff?
They did not. They asked and it was discussed, but they did not add those into their recommendation.
So Collins, what I have in here that committee said they've discussed with you, and just to make sure it's correct, that the commercial vehicles, the hours of delivery would be from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. except for June, July, August, and September, which would be from 6:30 to 6:30, and then trash pickup between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
I agree. Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, I have no intention of them waking up to dumpsters and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, that is what I agreed with them.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Wake us up. Council, if you have no other questions for the developer or staff?
Actually, I did just one question,
Okay.
Collins. So all these things that we've discussed and agreed upon, if there is a problem, who do they call?
That's a good point, because that was one thing that they also wanted to feel like, is that they still had a point of contact that had an interest for them, you know, that would listen. So one of the things, for example, the wall, you know, the code required 6 foot. Some of the feedback was that they wanted it a little bit taller possibly. And so I have an agreement with them that when we get to that point of the wall, we'll set a date. As many of them as want can show up. I'll create some sort of a visual horizontal marker, and we'll just simply raise it and lower it until collectively we hit a point. If it's 6.5 feet, great. If it's 7 feet, great. We don't want to go any higher than we absolutely have to. Everyone was in agreement on that. And so there are 3 spaces here that I intend to lease out that I don't own, but predominantly I own the spaces there, and I don't intend for that to change. And so I do feel like, you know, over the last couple of months of learning this process and meeting with them, that it's been beneficial for me, but especially for them to understand that the building owner is also the business owner. I've lived here 28 years, and ironically, I don't live here right now for a little bit, but I will be living back here soon, and I'm not going anywhere. You know, all of my kids are here, and so I think that helped them understand as well. I do have an interest in a long-term relationship with them, and so I am that person to answer your question the long way.
They have his number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mayor, I'll make a comment.
Just really quick, on the wall height, the maximum height is 6 feet 4. That's our regulation, so they can't go higher than that.
So just a comment about the, so this item and this project has been, this year, probably one of the items that we've received the most concerns and input from the community of Sun River. Sure. I just want the residents that are here tonight of Sun River, if you're here for this, please know that as a city council, we've all discussed this much. We've gone out there. We hear your concerns. And Collins, I'd just like to, I think you've done a really good job of addressing those concerns. We know that this isn't an easy piece. We know that, you know, it is a commercially zoned area next to residential. So it's tough. But I think you've done a good job of doing that. I think you're meeting all of the requirements, and you've made some concessions on things and worked with the public. So I like what you've done. Thank you for working with the public on that. And I just want the residents of Sun River to know that we have listened. We've met with the developer. We've gone out to see the site. We just want you to know that you're heard. We know it's a hard piece. That's just a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the Atkinville Interchange area commercial zone for a conceptual site plan, elevations, and colors and materials to be known as Sun River Patio Furniture on approximately 5.06 acres located south of Nighthawk Drive, west of Pioneer Road, and east of Sandpiper Drive. And with that motion to include all of the stipulations that we've discussed tonight with regards to hours of operation in terms of trash removal, delivery services, and all the other considerations that have been discussed.
Right turn only from Sandpiper.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Bardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have Mike come up. The next item is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from A1 agriculture to R18 single-family residential on approximately 15.647 acres located at 3,000 South, 3,500 East, to be known as Red Pine R18.
Okay. So here's the aerial view of the proposed piece. You can see the neighboring properties. It's the Ashley Estates Elementary School there over about 3,000 East. The general plan is low-density residential. and the zoning is agricultural, and then surrounding zoning is R18. So this proposal does fit with the neighboring area. And then here's just a picture of the site plan. With that, I can answer any questions or the applicants here.
Questions for Mike?
Ready for motion? I make a motion to approve an ordinance changing the zone from 1A agricultural to R1B 8, single family residence on approximately 15.647 acres located at 3,000 South, 3,500 East, to be known as Red Pines R18.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Vardell.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next three items are general plan changes, all related to the same area of 3050 East and 750 North. And so the first one is regarding a change from C3 general commercial and R110 to PDC planned unit or planned development commercial, and that one is on approximately 15 acres, with the site to be known as Zion Regional Medical Center.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this case and the next two after this one will all be concerning this area right here, on the basically the northeast boundary at this point of St. George. I believe everyone's familiar with this, 3050 East, 850 North. There's Costco, Home Depot, and Walmart. So big, I don't know what the word is. Everyone knows where those are. Okay. The general plan land use for this location right here is commercial. And right now, the zoning is C3 and R110, and the applicant wants to change this to PDC to kind of go more in line with the land use map. So here's an area concept plan. Now this we've kind of turned the map here, so we've got Walmart and Home Depot to the left now. And tonight we're just, sorry about that. Or for this case right here, we're just going to talk about the hospital. This map you do have at your desk. It has been updated, and the reason why it's been updated, I'll talk about it a little bit right now, and we can talk about it later on as well. But the hospital site right here, there is an access that Washington City, this is the line between St. George and Washington City. Washington City does have an access between Walmart and Home Depot, and the idea is they'd like to, and St. George would like to, if possible, to extend an access that comes through there, through that development, and comes down and connects in with this new development. So as there's not a road right now, this arrow here is kind of showing where it would be. However, this arrow is not quite in the right location. So the maps that you have has a blue line kind of showing where it really should be. Because of the utilities in the area, it kind of has to, and the slope, it will need to kind of come across this property a little bit more than it shows. So that's deals with that access, and we will talk about traffic and access in a little bit as we progress. But right now we are just talking about the hospital project. So it's actually turned back. We're actually north is up again with the Walmart and Home Depot up here. This is the extension of 850. So there will be the main entrance for the hospital off of the extended 850 north. And then there will be a second entrance off of this shared drive here. And then if you continue the shared drive, this is where that access up to Washington City would end up at. So the hospital right here is where it's proposed to go in. There are some phases that they'd like to propose. I do want to mention that there's a helipad going in right here on the property, and this they've gotten approval with the state as far as location. It meets all the regulations on that. The hospital itself will be about 85,000 square feet, 3 stories, 24 beds, and 4 operating rooms with 12 emergency bays. There are plans to extend, and the future expansion will double the beds and add just over 130,000 square feet, and that's where the extension will be up here. There's also they'd like to leave this area right here open for a future medical office building, which would be about 40,000 square feet and a 2-story building. So right now, obviously, they're not building that. They're just doing the first phase of the hospital. So traffic and access, we did talk about this access up here. There is already a signal here on 3050 East. And when this went to the Planning Commission, we did not have the draft traffic, the TIS study done or back to the city. It was not completed, but it has been since, and our Public Works Department has looked at it. We'll talk about it a little bit later, and if you have questions, you can certainly ask them on that. But as far as parking goes, they are required to have 257 stalls, and I believe they are over by 103 because they're showing 360, so they're definitely meeting parking. They're useless. This is the useless that they have come up with. It's mostly medical related. There are some retail services in there. Staff is okay with that. And as far as landscaping, this is a conceptual landscape plan. They'll be required to meet the code on that. This area right here will be bordering residential, so they will need to do the buffer. I think I have it circled right here. They will need to do the buffer with a 6-foot fence on that or wall. Pedestrian routes, there is a planned, in our general plan, we do have a planned pedestrian path that goes from 850 and then it heads up and then it ends up in Washington City along their trail network up there. The applicant is aware of this, and there are plans to connect this, maybe not exactly here, but they will work with our Parks Department on placing that path. As far as pedestrian routes, there is a pedestrian route off of the extended 850 north that comes in and connects right up with the main entrance. Staff would like to see another pedestrian access kind of coming down this way and kind of connecting to this commercial area would be helpful. Here's some elevation plans, and I do have a materials board. It's the smaller one up here that I can pass around if you'd like. But this is the south elevation. So this is on the new extended 850 north. This is what you will see. On the east, so this is facing the residential area, the proposed residential area. That's what you'll see on that side. And then west, this will be, west will be facing 3050 east, so that's the view there. And then this is the north view that will be kind of pushing up towards the Walmart and the Home Depot. Here's a perspective view. This is as if you were looking on the new extension of 850 north. So the entrance is right about here, and then this is the emergency area, and then the main entrance is over here. This is the material boards that I have. If you'd like, I can pass it around if you want to look at it, if anyone wants to. Okay. I look at you, Danielle. Okay. This recommendation is huge. We did present this to the Planning Commission, as I mentioned, without the traffic study. So they did have that as one of their recommendations, that traffic study be complete. Also, and I didn't mention it, the maximum height of the hospital will be 54 feet. So staff did want to include that in the recommendation, that the height be extended to 54 feet. Also, in their use list, they had a communication facility over 50 feet, and staff feels if they are going to go over 50 feet that they'll need to come back to this venue, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to have this heard before the city council on that. And then, let's see, is there any other ones? Pedestrian access, we have that as one of our conditions, and that they'll work with Washington City. This condition right here, this was received after, or put in after the draft traffic study was turned in. So this is all about the entrance that goes between this development and Washington City. And I'm not going to read it, but it is in your packets. So if you would like to go over that, if you want to talk more about that, like I said, we do have Public Works here. You can talk to them about that. I do want to add one recommendation that is not on here, and I'm going to read it. And this is just an extra condition. It was mentioned in the staff report, but we didn't have it as a condition, and staff felt we needed to add it as a condition because it's a pretty important one. For this area, there is no electricity available. We do not have sufficient electricity. The city does not have sufficient electricity. So a substation needs to be built in this area, and there is one planned. However, no development will be able to be built until the substation is up and running because there will be no electricity available. So the condition I'm adding, or staff would like to add, it says no building permit for vertical structures will be issued until the substation is complete and all necessary easements are in place for the substation. So that's just an additional condition. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I think I'll just go to the site plan.
So what would the timeline be then on the substation?
Talking to our electric department, when they get the okay to go on the substation, it's about 1.5 years to get that built. And we have discussed this with the applicant as well, and they are aware of the timeline on that.
So if approved, site work, utilities, that type of thing, infrastructure could be completed, just nothing vertical.
Correct. And and I'll show you where the substation is when we go over the general plan, but where that's located, it's quite a distance from 3050, so our electric department will need to have that graded so they can actually get to it to build the substation, so yeah.
Is now the time to talk about traffic on this, or do we want to go over other things and then start talking about traffic after, when we talk about the whole development?
Yeah, we can talk about traffic whenever you'd like. So you want to talk about traffic now?
Well, since it's on this
I can get my backup.
Since it's on this piece, let's...
Camera's here.
Let's bring Cameron up maybe. I think the biggest, for me, and I won't speak for everybody, but I think my biggest concern is we all know 3050 is a mess. We all know that when you get into that intersection between Telegraph and 3050, we're in the worst intersection in Washington County. And so the traffic on this parcel is so crucial now that we're adding all these extra, trips into the area. Cameron, could you talk about the access to the north? And I think that's important. And the other thing, the city manager from Washington City approached me talking about this and said that it's crucial that we have that the traffic, the road through the north, through those two, through the Walmart and the Home Depot. And then they also mentioned the traffic that's coming down, and we're not talking about this in this piece yet, but as the road comes down and turns and dumps into a Washington City street, I think they had ideas of where that should address. Anyways, could you talk first? So first thing is, could you talk about the traffic going through the north, and is it sufficient to as we add this? And then the second thing would be, I'd just like to make sure that the city of St. George and the city of Washington are both happy with the ingress egress coming out into Washington and into the city of St. George.
Okay. I will zoom in here a little bit so that we can look at a map. So we can talk about that traffic movement and stuff. Okay. The question had come up where do we need a larger roadway right here versus a driveway? And really the issues at Telegraph and 3050 East, there's a lot of traffic there. But if I can reduce the left turn movements, the turning movements, then you can add more green time on those through movements. And this driveway helps a lot with that left turn movement coming out of, if you're coming out of Walmart, getting onto Telegraph, going to the intersection to the west, that 3050 East and Telegraph intersection, you're taking a left to go south on 3050 East. If I can go down and get to the A50 North, all of a sudden that traffic movement, the left turn is not near as the size of the other movements, the through movements, but it greatly improves that intersection because it reduces that left turn green time. And so when I had the MPO model this, they had Horrocks, their engineer model, their cube model, their travel demand model, and they estimated, it's only going to be about 2,500 cars a day going through on a driveway. If you were to compare that to a through movement, that's not very much. But when you compare that to the left turn movement, that's huge for that intersection. That's why in our coordination with Washington, we felt like, look, this doesn't need to be a roadway, a large 50-foot, 60-foot, 66-foot roadway, a driveway would suffice. And hence the reason why just getting this driveway from this development would be okay. We still have to get, or Washington still has to get the right-of-way on Home Depot site. There's about 30 feet of right-of-way missing. They have and I'll explain that, between the two buildings on their plat, they already have a 30-foot ingress, egress, access easement between those buildings. But once it gets to the curb and gutter down here on the south side, there's a 30-foot distance approximately between that curb and gutter and the property line. That's only a drainage utility easement that Washington has on their plat. We still have to obtain that right-of-way from Home Depot. And so getting this right-of-way, it's the potential for a road. So if they do get that right-of-way, then we can put the roadway in. And that's the purpose of it, to try and obtain this right-of-way. To your other question, toward the east, Washington City, they have two locations, and one of them is on their current master plan, another one's on a draft master plan that they have. And we've talked to the resident, the property owner, Scott Sandberg, he actually owns a bunch of this property to the east, and it is not his intention to have a roadway go through there. And I understand that. We understood that when we talked to him. And so the layout that shows on that plan, where it curves down to the south, it ties into this 840 South Road in Washington's address. That's where it ties into, and then it goes, that same roadway per Washington City's master plan goes to the east and then ties over to Washington Fields Road at 840 East also. We feel like that connection absolutely is a benefit. In this plan that the property owner developer is submitting, it also has a proposed road just to the north of there at some future date that it would stub out. In case at some point in time either Scott changes his mind, or like he teased about, that maybe his kids would develop property someday in the future and then there's a roadway there, then we have a roadway stubbed out for that. But it's not our intention to use that as the main roadway. There is some benefit to the future as an Interchange 11, a proposed Interchange 11 comes in Washington on I-15, ties into Main Street. That Main Street would come south and tie into one or the other, either their 840 South Road or something, so that you actually can get over to the east side of this development, west side of Washington, and tie into that interchange. And then that will also help telegraph 3050 East intersection and exit 10. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep. West would have been quicker.
So Cameron, I'm looking at that on Google Maps. So tying down into 840, it would be their 840 South. That's
Yes.
what you're talking about, right? So then that tees into their 100 East.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're saying their plan would be that people just use that 100 East as a residential street.
It is. And they've got
And
this stub out. If you
agricultural.
keep going to the east, this is also 840 South right here, is it? Yeah, 840 South. The width of this road is actually a collector road.
Okay.
A little bit larger road. And so that's what their master plan has shown. I know that they're trying to push to try and get this roadway over at Foothills Drive, but that's why, because of the 840 South connection, the existing connection on Washington Fields Drive or Road, and also the existing 840 South east-west section right there, that's why we kept this S-curve tying into this development, kind of to the south of their development.
I see. Okay, so you're actually going to take 840 South all the way through to Washington Fields Road, is what you're saying. Okay.
I mean, Washington will have to take care of that. That'll be in Washington, but at least we would be connecting to a public road.
Cameron, have you had a chance to speak with Washington? I mean, are they okay with kind of where we're at with this?
Yes, I believe so. Their main concern was that connection to the north. They did mention, hey, we have our draft master plan. We want to try and connect Foothills Drive, but that's I can't make that decision for Washington. But that's why we have on the plan. If I can get, let's see if there's anything. Well, the traffic study showed a potential roadway, a future road tying into the north where Foothills Drive could go through, and also to the south, the main road going to the 840 South. So we have the understanding that in this development, as they go to plan their other pods, that there would be a roadway connection, just a stub out right there to the border.
Can I ask you one more question, Cameron?
Yep.
So if you can go back to this, have you seen that? And
yeah.
Could you explain that north ingress, egress, just so we understand it a little bit?
Let's see, make sure I get the right one.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too, because I mean, the way I know this is just drawn on here just to give us an idea that that's happening, but it seems like if we're approving this, that they need to know that most likely it's going to come through that future parking space, right?
Yes, and so that's why I communicated with the development representatives today, and because it kind of misrepresents where that connection would be. The intention in the discussion that we had was that it would impact and could impact, likely impact that parking area, that future parking area on this north side. And they concurred that, yes, that's what we discussed, that's where it would be. It just was misrepresented on this exhibit.
So just to help me understand this from what it is now, it'll basically come down and then tie into that road that goes to the light that goes into Costco, is that right?
Yes.
And so just to ask the question again, you don't think that we need anything more robust than that? You think that's sufficient for moving forward is what that is?
I think it's okay, and that's why I verified through the MPO and had them run that model to make sure. And it was a significant impact, a benefit, a good impact to helping telegraph 3050 East intersection.
Cameron, one issue that I could see happening, I mean, just because my business is over there, I know it's so crowded over there, and people are looking for any way to avoid that intersection, to the north with Telegraph. So I worry right now what people do is they cut around the back of Walmart, to try to get through faster and avoid that intersection. So my one concern with this is that people start turning right on 850, turning left, and then it actually backs up right there because it's so close to the intersection. Is there anything we can do to mitigate that? I mean, maybe a little roundabout right there so that you went into those different areas and didn't have like the left backup right there?
That could be a possibility. 2,500 cars now. Can I give you an example on 2,500 cars is not very much in reality. On a regular road, Bloomington Hills Drive might have 7,000 cars a day, 8,000 cars a day. And you try and think of, okay, does it back up at certain intersections? And it backs up a little bit, but not a whole lot, not hundreds and hundreds of feet. That's a good thought, would a roundabout be okay right there? We didn't model that in the traffic study, and I could ask their engineer if they would do that. Just to see what kind of queuing they have. Now, let me back up. Okay, now I'm going to confess. I didn't, they probably showed that in the traffic study, the draft traffic study that they gave me, and so I might be able to go and look and see what the queue lengths are. Theirs was a little bit different printouts, and so I don't know if it provided those queue lengths, but I could verify that. I could verify what the queue length is and see if it does back up into that intersection.
So is Washington currently working on trying to get the right-of-way from Home Depot?
I'm not sure. When I talked to their public works director, he had a conversation years past with Home Depot and Walmart, and they were in agreement with it. They were okay with it. But that was years ago, and he said that they probably changed management by now. And probably about 3 weeks ago or so when I spoke with him, he had not spoken with Home Depot nor Walmart at that point.
And so this is in their court right now.
It is, and we will work together to try and get that. If St. George needs to try and have some discussions, or if we sit down at the table with them, or if Washington just chooses to do that, yeah, we're open to whatever.
If we were to say something along the lines of just the city of St. George and Washington City need to be in agreement with ingress, egress, without, doing something that's going to limit this project so that you can't do something for a long time. But would that be acceptable to where we feel like we can work within those bounds? We just want to make sure that we're good partners. And again, it all comes down to this is such a bad traffic area. We want to do the best we can with this.
The solution is just to tell them to shop in St. George, not in Washington. Oh, perfect. Ryan, do you know what the queue length is on that intersection right there?
Yeah, 275.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Ryan Hells from Hells Engineering. The queuing is about 275 feet for the right turn pocket. So the left turn pocket has a different queue length, but the right turn queues go pretty quick. You pull up to the light, if it's red, you can still make a right turn. So about 275 feet is what we're looking at for the 95th percentile queue. That means 95% of the time it'll be at that distance or less. Sorry, that's the way we look at it as engineers. 95th. It's kind of geeky.
Do you remember what the distance is? Do you remember what the distance is between that intersection and the internal intersection?
I don't. I'm not sure what that is, but we can get back to you on that.
We could measure it. 275 feet. It's probably that's probably. Well, I don't know what. Let's see. That's 150 there. It's probably close to, I just know the distance on another offset intersection. It's probably close to maybe 400 to 500 feet, and so maybe 400 feet.
Perception, Cameron, you're not concerned that that's going to stack up?
No, if it's only 275 feet, yeah, it should be okay.
Okay.
Sorry, and just to add one quick comment. Great question on the road and what we need to do. We've added a lot of elements to this. We've added right turn pockets, left turn pockets, dual left turn lanes, and we're potentially looking at a future signal a little bit further to the south that would also help out bringing traffic out of the development.
Any more questions, council? Got them all answered? Who wants to tackle this motion? Comment from the developer?
Good evening, council member. I'm Jared Cox with Coaction Development Group. Just real quick, about a couple hours ago, we did hear about that last condition that was talked about with regards to the substation. We've always known that the substation was going to be required for this area, but this was the first we heard that our building permit would not be issued until the substation was complete. So our construction duration is about 18 months for the hospital, and it's going to be about 18 months for the substation to be completed. We had always envisioned that there would be that overlap period so that the substation would be completed prior to our hospital construction being completed. But now we've just been told that we can't start our building going vertical for 18 months. And that absolutely it crushes this opportunity that we have to put the hospital here on this site. So I just wanted to make sure that we would be open to having a certificate of occupancy being held up for the substation to be completed, but having the building permits being held up, it just pushes the whole schedule out too far. If you can see how that works out. So.
But if there's no power there, how are you going to go vertical?
How are we going to go vertical with the during the construction?
Yeah, just start building and not have the sufficient power over there.
Yeah, so there's temporary power. It means that we can tackle that situation with latent construction, But by not having the ability to move the project forward on the construction side, it just doesn't become feasible for us anymore. So I just wanted to put that out there, as we can tackle the construction side, but not being able to move forward until the substation is completed would just push it out too far. So.
Thanks. There's a sidebar going on over here, so. Yeah.
Good evening, council members. Garrett Goff, I'm with Garden Development. I'm representing the Sandberg family and with the hospital as well. And I just wanted to echo what Jared said, that we had known that the substation needed to get done, and we had planned an acre for that. We always envisioned that going concurrent with the hospital, based on the lead times and everything, that it would work out. And after talking with a couple of people on the phone, we found out around 3:30 today, but it would kill the hospital deal. So that's what we're faced with. So we could run concurrent with the construction of the hospital and the construction of the substation, and certificate of occupancy could be held up until it's done. That's just kind of where we're at tonight. But thank you.
Thanks.
And this was the electric department that had this recommendation about holding it up. They just didn't feel comfortable. And I think a lot of it was the point that you brought up, Mayor, about building, where are they going to get temporary power from? Because we absolutely have no power for that area. And so that was the concern.
Yeah, it's the construction, and also we need to make sure we get that substation under construction and work with the applicant to obtain that property. We are concerned about doing the C of O, having a multi-million-dollar project being built and not having power, I think may cause us additional issues. And so I think holding up the building permit or not issuing the building permit until that substation is built and running is staff feels is probably the best option.
And one last thing, we have been working with the city on selling that piece of property. It is an acre. It is in the southern eastern part of the property. We've been working with them. They know where we're at as far as, our first offer, price per square foot. The last communication we had was November 18th, as far as they were deliberating and going through that. So we don't know where they're at with that process, but it is in their court, and we are more than willing to get this going as fast as possible. But I just wanted to reiterate and echo that we understand John's position and staff, but it will kill the hospital deal based on their timing with their capital needs. So thank you.
Mayor and Council, I did just receive an update that our Energy Services Director did say that we could provide them temporary power and allow them to take out the building permit as long as we don't provide the CO until we officially energize that substation. If that's helpful.
Thanks, Dee, because I know Lori was talking about that earlier. She was really concerned about that.
A question for this.
Mr. Guzman, do you have a comment? State your name for the record.
He's a citizen.
Exactly.
Sean Guzman, concerned citizen. No. Former city attorney, current public relations director. Just our past experience with, if we get to the CO stage, is it's very difficult. And we're talking about a multi-million-dollar project. John, I think the reason why John Willis has expressed some concern is because we've gone through that with homes, with residential homes, where they've said, we'll get this done. They've got the home built, and they want that C of O, and we're going, the deal was that this had to be done, and they're saying, you're not going to let us move in. When you have an organization that has put millions of dollars into a building, it's very difficult to hold to that CO standard. So I think rightfully, if we, and I would ask of those that are here with the project, if there's any reason why we keep them moving with the grading, which takes a while to get the grading done on the property. In the meantime, we're working actively to acquire that substation site and the easement. I want to point that out. The easement is also crucial to get the power poles connected to our existing poles. I think we can get that done during that time frame and still do it in a way that'll allow them to get their building permit on time, unless there's some impediment to getting that easement and the purchase that I'm not aware of. So I think it would be better for staff if we just went along with the first proposal, which was at the building permit. Get that, and I will make this commitment too, that if we're far enough along with the construction of the substation and the line, that we feel comfortable that building permit can be issued, because we know the building's not going to be completed before our substation is energized and our wires are energized, our lines, then we can be flexible on that too. I think as a city we always have been flexible on these types of projects. But I think the hard and fast of saying they can go ahead with the CO creates a lot of problems for the staff that we want to avoid. I think that keeps the appropriate pressure on everyone to get our jobs done.
So what you're saying, there's a lot of stuff that's got to happen before they can go vertical that they could be working on that you're saying may not hold them up.
That's exactly right. And that will be our commitment, is we will do everything to keep the project moving once everything's approved.
And that once we have the site agreement and the right-of-way agreements, that at that point then we could probably say, it looks like it's going to happen on time. We could then issue the building permit even with the substation not done.
Because we can look to Energy Services and say, we've got the easement in place, we've got the property purchased, we've got all of the equipment ordered or it's being installed right now, and we feel confident we'll be done in time to meet that deadline. I think we could work on this project together as a team and do that without putting that burden on our staff of, what if we get to the CO stage and it's not done? I think this keeps pressure on all of us to keep moving.
I think they would want the same thing, to know that we have the stuff in place to get it done in time. Otherwise, they'll be back to square one with the money already invested.
Absolutely. And so I think you will find that we have a staff that works together with those that are doing projects in the city, unlike any other city in Utah. I'll make that commitment. But I think we do not want to fall back to the certificate of occupancy as a reason why, the only reason that would be holding them up, because of the only thing we could hold up on that and not get everything done that needs to be done. And sorry if I sound a little inarticulate, because I was in the back having another conversation trying to figure out how we could best approach this. But that's my comment. I'm John, do you agree with that, or are you good with that? Tawny and Deanna. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
And I'd be glad to visit. John and I would be glad to visit with you all if you'd like to right after this. So.
Just a couple of other quick comments or thoughts. I have no doubt that that there's going to be a lot of work on trying to get that substation into place as quickly as possible. And on our current timelines, where we're running everything, we are looking to have our full building permits in approximately June, the site and the building permits. So if the substation is still, I've only been told 18 months, as I think when we were, and by the way, the timing of when we found this information out was at 3:30 this afternoon. I've already met with St. George Power with our site engineer as we're in preparation for our site development package, and we've always known the substation was needed, but nobody's ever said, oh, you're not going to be able to get your building permit and start moving forward with your construction on the vertical. Our plan, because of how tight this schedule is, the site and the vertical. Yes, there's some site work, the horizontal improvements that have to take place. We have scheduled a couple months in that area, and then we're going to be starting to go vertical as soon as we have our steel package on site. So I'm just, I guess, really concerned that if we're stuck without being able to get our building permit until the substation is completed, it just doesn't work. It's too far out. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I know that I know when I can get my building permits, which is in about 6 to 7 months. But anyway, the substation is just too much of a wild card.
Would you prefer, since Lori Mangum, our Energy Services Director, is not here, would you prefer if the council tabled this and come back to it on the 16th when we can have conversations with Lori? You guys can have conversations with Lori and we have her here and say... Well, sorry. Or have the council maybe make the motion that staff's recommending.
If the council is going to make a recommendation that the staff follow the staff recommendation, then it just doesn't do it. It just puts us in the wrong spot for this site. So that won't work for us at all. If we want to table it for a couple more weeks and have those additional conversations, I do kind of feel like we were blindsided coming into this meeting, and that wasn't very fun. So I do look forward to having maybe more productive and open conversations. But yeah, that's our deal. Is if it gets approved with the grading, with the building permits being held up because of the substation completion, it just pushes it out too far.
Okay, what I thought I just heard from Sean was that was not necessarily needed to be the case, that we would know better by that permitting time if everything was on task to have it completed. Otherwise, at that point, we'd be telling you it's not going to be completed in 18 months, and I would think you would want to delay your building permit as well, or else you're going to have an empty building sitting there without it completed. And that's what the safety measure is, I think, is what I'm hearing for us, is to make sure that we have everything in place before that building permit is issued, which is 6 months away. So I really think what I heard is you're going to be okay, I think. So that's up to you. We can like Ben mentioned, we could table it and talk about it again, but I think the answer is that, to me, that's what I heard, and the answer is going to be we're going to do everything we can so in June that you might have the confidence that you can then pull a permit knowing that there's going to be some still conditions on that we know that it's going to happen, and we have that site easements and the site dedicated, so we know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think maybe when in our earlier conversations with the power company and saying, hey, substation's needed, all right, great. Master developer's taking care of that. They're going to set aside an acre, sell an acre to the St. George Power so that they can locate that substation. We never saw that as a hurdle to this development, and from the timing standpoint, we have all of the design costs and everything else coming in that are ongoing right now, and so if this site, I can't wait till 6 months and find out that that's going to be a hurdle or an issue for the project being able to move forward. That's where I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that unknown, because for us, I guess I didn't think that the substation was an unknown. I mean, once the Sandberg sold that acre of property, the ball's rolling. I knew that there was a PSA. In fact, in our meeting we talked about with Lori. I think she said you're not going to be able to submit your plans for review until the PSA has been signed and agreed upon for the land. That seemed reasonable, right? That's a commitment. When if the Sandbergs have just sold that acre of land for the substation and we can't start our building permit review until that happens, okay, I'm checking those boxes that the substation is moving forward. Now the substation, once St. George owns the land, the substation is is in your hands to deliver. And having that 18-month road that I guess you'd have about a 24-month period to get the substation completed. It just never came across as a potential hurdle until 3:30 this afternoon. So that's where my concern was really lied. And if it becomes a hurdle that now it's an 18-month process to get the substation finished up, and then I can start my building vertical, I mean that's 36 months. So just too far.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that, and I don't think we want to see you have to wait that long either.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we should just table it and let you get comfortable with what's being said. Maybe that's the best idea, because.
Yeah, Sean or staff, would it be beneficial to have additional conversation before we vote on this item?
Yes, it might be, and I just want to clarify a few things. First of all, I don't think staff is opposed to getting started on building permit review, the plan review, because that's going to take a while to get done, and we recognize that. So we would not stop you from doing that because we want to keep the project going. What we're saying here is, and I do think we probably need just to clarify this so you totally understand this. My understanding is this, is that if we can get the substation site in the next month and get the easement, that easement's also critical, get the easement for those power lines and that taken care of, then we can begin the process, Lori can, of purchasing the equipment and getting everything ready to go. In the meantime, we could keep them moving on the project, and we will know when the timelines will coincide. In other words, when they're planning on estimating having that hospital built, and when we think our substation and power line will be built. And then at that stage, we'll know better. And then if we're saying, okay, it's going to be close, but we think we'll have enough power to energize that right now while we're getting everything done, we might figure out a way to do it that way, or we're going to say we'll have that substation done 2 months before you anticipate having your hospital done. So we could keep this project moving.
You want it to run concurrently.
We do, and we want to do everything to make that happen. And so if we need to have some more discussion so we can lay out those timelines of when that's going to happen and everybody feel comfortable with that, that would be great. But what makes staff uncomfortable is saying, as Councilman Hughes said, the potential of having a multi-million-dollar hospital there and us saying we're not done yet and we knew we weren't going to be done yet and you're going to be sitting there empty for 2 months, which we don't want to have happen, and I don't think they do either. I think we can hammer this out in a way that makes everybody feel comfortable and on moving forward.
So table it to the 16th?
That would be my recommendation. John, do you agree?
I'll make a motion then that we table item number 6 until December 16th.
I'll second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We will see you back here on the 16th. And follow Sean or John. Will you communicate with them on meeting up with the power department and everybody else?
Does that apply to 7 and 8 as well?
Does that mean we're going to have 7 and 8 tabled also?
It is up to you. However, this project right here, the St. George White Hills commercial development, it's just the initial zone change, so they don't even have any buildings proposed at all.
Okay.
At this point. It's a conceptual site plan and a use list.
Okay.
And then the one after this is a general plan amendment, which really doesn't have anything to do with buildings. So, if you want to go ahead with this, I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Okay. All right, where are we? Okay, so this is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from C3 general commercial, M1 manufacturing, and R110 single-family residential to PDC planned development commercial on approximately 26.99 acres located east of 3050 East Street and north of 750 North, and it is to be known as St. George White Hills Development. So I think we're familiar with the location. This is, the hospital location is right here. So this is just right in front of it along 3050 and extending east a little bit. General plan land use map shows this all as commercial, and zoning shows this as C3, R110, and manufacturing, a little bit of manufacturing. And as I mentioned, this is just the initial approval that they are seeking, and we don't have any buildings to present. So we did talk about this, the conceptual plan for the entire area. With the hospital being in blue, this site plan is for this retail area. It's this area outlined in red. The retail slots available, and then these are mainly going to be for restaurants out here in the front. Let's see, traffic study. We did talk about traffic study and the concerns in this area, and I think most of the questions have been answered on that. And we did talk, this is more about the traffic study, but this does show the hospital with this development. The intersections are lining up here on the extension of 850 North. This is the use list that they proposed. The use list is a good length. On this use list, one of the uses was animal hospital and veterinarian clinic for large animals. Staff just wants to make sure that the understanding is they will be allowed with standards, permitted with standards on that. Car wash they did have on their list, and staff feels like if they would like to put in a car wash and they're ready to put in a car wash, we wouldn't mind having them add that at that time, but to not have it on the list right now. And we did talk to the applicants about all of these. And this last one, it's not the last one, second to last one, large floor area. Since this is a PD, we really don't need to have this on the use list because they'll have to come before the Planning Commission and Council every time they present a new building anyway, no matter what the size. And then the last one, they did have crematorium on their use list. Crematoriums sometimes get a bad rap, and studies have been showing that their fine particle dust could be hazardous to young children and the elderly. And since this development is going right next to proposed residential land, staff recommends that be removed. We did present this to the Planning Commission. Those items that I listed, removing the car wash, the 20,000 square foot size building, the crematorium, they did agree with that. And then also the permitted with standards, they did agree with that. In addition, the Planning Commission did recommend these other items, which has to do with the traffic study and the access into Washington City. As I mentioned before with the previous case, staff has received the traffic study, and there are some additional recommendations. This was in your packet. There's a lot of words, but these are the conditions, the additional conditions, and we're adding this to this case because it is a planned development. We wanted to make sure all of these traffic issues get addressed. They're just generalized comments in regards to the draft traffic study. Cameron's still here if you have any more questions about the traffic study or about any of these conditions that he's added on. So that is all I have. Planning Commission did recommend approval with those conditions, and as I mentioned, these are the extra conditions. And then I do want to mention we were going to add, and I don't know how you want to handle this one, but with this case, we did also want to add that same condition with completion that no building permits will be able to be issued for this property until the substation is completed. And like I said, they do not have any proposals of building permits at this time. Any questions?
Questions for Carol? The applicant wants to say something.
I think it might be just appropriate to table this one with the zone change of the other one as well.
Just table them all until the 12th.
The general plan amendment, I think we could go forward with because,
okay.
But that just makes the most sense in my opinion. Is that okay with everyone?
Perfect. Motion to table this one till the 16th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, and there are no conditions on this last one. So this is item number 8, to consider approval of an ordinance changing the general plan future land use map from COM commercial and IND industrial to MDR medium density residential and HDR high density residential and PF public facilities on approximately 53 acres located east of 3050 East Street and north of 750 North, and this is to be called White Hills General Plan Amendment. Okay, so this is the back area or the east portion of this property that they're requesting a general plan amendment. And just for your information, the lagoon and the area around it is owned by the city, but there's no problem getting the general plan changed on this property. For the zoning, we do have R110 and M1 for the entire property. And then the general plan right now, we have commercial and industrial. It's kind of split in half. So this is kind of a before and after. This is how it looks now, and this is what they're proposing. This is the medium density residential that will kind of line up right against the Washington border, Washington city border. And then high density residential a little bit lower, kind of along this industrial area. And then this public facility, that's where the substation's going to go. And then that 850 North is kind of come around, split the commercial, and then hug this line and go right into Washington City at that point. So that's where that public facility is, and it's about an acre for that. We've looked at the conceptual plan, and these are the accesses that Cameron was speaking about that can eventually connect in with Washington City, this one here, and then this one here. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this general plan amendment, and that's all I have. If you have any questions.
I have a question, Carol. That helipad is right up against that medium density residential. Is there any issue with that?
Yeah, the helipad actually will be about, right about here. Mm-hmm. They'll have to do the buffer. It will be something where the hospital is planning on going in before any of the residential goes in, and it will be something that they'll know.
Just regulates it. Okay.
That's going to be something that you can't control emergencies, and that'll just be, I mean, they'll have their buffer in, but
okay.
Yeah.
When you think about the hospital downtown, the old one at 400 East, they had a helipad and there was houses close by, so.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's cool when they take off.
No, I do.
Sorry, and to speak to that as well, the mixed density residential probably won't be developed in Scott's lifetime because his house is just on the other side of that open space.
Oh, okay.
So everything. So the staff wanted us to come with the whole 100 acres and kind of do a plan development, and this was what we came up with. And we did meet with City Council and Planning Commission in the work session in September, and we flipped the multifamily, as you guys can see, so it's not on an island, and it is kind of with the mixed density residential when that goes forward. So we actually really like this layout, and we appreciate your guys' feedback on that meeting in September. So thank you.
Yeah, it looks great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
If there's no questions, I'm ready for a motion. Let's give them 1 out of 3. Yeah, you want this one subject to the substation too? I'll make the motion, Mayor. Motion to approve an ordinance changing the general plan future land use map from commercial and industrial to medium-density residential, high-density residential, and public facility on approximately 53 acres located east of 3050 East and north of 750 North Street, to be known as St. George White Hills Development.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Brian. All in favor, starting with Danielle. Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, council, so we're to item number 9, which is to consider the approval of the preliminary plat for the Brooks subdivision, which is a 3-lot residential subdivision located at the southwest corner of the intersection of 100 South and 300 West.
Okay, so as Dee said, this is, like she said, it's a preliminary plat right here. Here's the lot, 300 West, 100 South. And here's the layout of the subdivision. I did walk the site, and there is some curb and gutter like right along here and some sidewalk here that I think Brigham Young installed. Because it's like, it's not bad, but it's super old. And so, I mean.
That's how the sidewalks are in DC. You just,
and
go
it's
like
great.
this. Yeah.
And some of it, there's sidewalk right here on 100 South that the aggregate's coming up through now because all of the cream has eroded over time. And if you slipped on that in the ice, then you got a problem because it is so rough and rugged. Anyway, so we have been working with I have talked with the owner, and we're going to look at possibly cost sharing to remove the sidewalk and curb and gutter in the areas where it's not necessarily damaged, but it's really old. And so we're going to try to work together and come up with a cost share where we can replace that curb and gutter and sidewalk and kind of make it look more, more current. So that's something.
Wes, isn't it even like the old width? Some of that is really skinny. Is that in that space right there?
I can't remember. I didn't measure it, to be honest with you, and I'll have to do that. I just looked at the condition of it just to see how bad it was, and it's not really bad. It's just old. Nothing wrong with being old. But anyway, so there's that one. Another condition is they have 4 trees on the site. One of them, I believe, is right here. As you know, downtown, they have those wider right-of-ways. And so one of the trees is right there on 100 South, and the other one is right there behind that bus bench, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, they're both located within the right-of-way, so they'll have to leave those unless they go through the shade tree board and go through an approval process to remove those. But those will need to remain. The other 2 are actually on private property, and so they could come down. And then our ordinance requires on a road such as 100 South, as it's labeled, that they would have to provide, because all 3 will have access onto 100 South as their primary access. So they'll have to provide some type of turnaround on that lot so that they can come out front. I know Cameron pointed out that most of the older homes don't have that, but the ordinance does require it. But it wasn't too big of a deal as I met with them. Both of these 2 lots will have detached garages, and so they're able to provide a little space here where you pull out and then you can come forward. And on this one, they'll have a garage here, but a fairly wide driveway area, and we looked at it, and I think it's possible or fairly feasible to be able to make that work too. So they were comfortable with that condition as well. So it'd be
Wes, is that just a choice of theirs for that easterly-most lot to exit onto 100?
Yeah, they could actually exit onto 300 if they want. Yeah. I think they're going to have a driveway coming off of 300 as they have a garage here and a garage here, but this one they wanted access here and this one there. Okay. So those were just the 3 conditions that I discussed with them.
Questions? If not, ready for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Brooks subdivision, a 3-lot residential subdivision located on the southwest corner of the intersection of 100 South, 300 West.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, if I could get a motion to table number 10 until the preliminary plat for Palermo Pass at DeVario to December 16th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so Wes is still up here for the next one, item 11, to consider the approval of a preliminary plat for the Rock Garden 10-lot industrial manufacturing subdivision. It's located in the St. George Industrial Park, just west of the intersection of 770 North and 1080 East.
So so here's your location. It's right here in that northwest corner of the St. George Industrial Park. And this, just for your information, is the first industrial subdivision I've done here in 11 years. So I thought that was kind of cool.
So is that where the old trailer park used to be?
The trailer park is right here.
Is it still
with that,
there?
yeah, right there. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
just south of there. I think this is the Stout property. I think Myrna
Okay.
Stout owns this property. So basically, they want to divide it into these lots, 10 lots, right here. They have water that runs up. They're really the only concern on this one. The one concern is they are excavating along this boundary line here, and so they have to provide. They basically said it should be a rock cut, so we'll have a letter from a geotechnical engineer that certifies that that's a stable slope because they're just going to cut it vertically. So we'll get that. The other condition is there is water in here, but and they can meet fire flows for the 10 lots. They just can't meet pressure for the 10 lots. So you'll notice that right here, they'll have to put in a pressure sustaining valve to then boost the pressure up for the lots so that they can meet the pressures that they need on the lots. So, and then they have this line over here that actually will be a private line. You can see it comes off, goes through the pressure sustaining valve or pump, and then goes to that water line there. That one will also have, this line and that pressure sustaining pump will need to be owned by an HOA because it's not something the city wants to take on. It's more of a private system. So they'll be required to form an HOA with the intent that they maintain that that pressure booster pump and that 4-inch water line there on the west side of the road. That's it.
Questions for Wes? Ready for motion?
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Rock Garden Industrial Manufacturing Subdivision. Make it easy.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I do have one appointment. It is to the Arts Commission, Wendy Spooner. So if somebody could make that motion. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any reports? You okay? You gotta go? Okay.
I don't have any.
I don't either.
No. Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.